Hey, Wharf Rats, Ryan here.
And this is Wes.
Hey, Wes, how you doing today? And welcome everybody to the newest edition of Rat Chat. Wes, tell us what we have going on today.
We're going to start off with NATO from Legendary Tactics. We have an interview with him, and he talks about his series of wonderful Avalon Hill documentaries. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Baltimore and what we know about the history too there.
Oh, very cool. I look forward to seeing that. Also, we have a new little segment that we're calling Local Legends. And the first person we're going to have on there is the great Bill Molyneaux, and Goober as well will be joining us. And we'll be talking about some cool things that he's up to.
Yep.
Wes,
And
what's
then
else?
we have a giveaway 1914, the old Avalon Hill Jim Dunnigan game. And we'll be doing that today. So somebody lucky that is signed up with our email list will get a chance to win this.
Oh, awesome. And finally, some news and notes. We'll go over a little bit of the status of what's going on with the Forlorn Hope, our newest game from Herman Luttman, World War One, Trench Warfare. I know you can't wait for it to come out, and we are working on it hard. We'll tell you a little bit more later in the program. So stay tuned.
All right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan.
I'm Wes.
And I'm NATO.
Yes, that's right. We got NATO here from Legendary Tactics. Welcome, NATO. Nice to see you. How you doing?
Thanks for having me on. And I apologize in advance for my voice. I'm getting over a cold, but I'll power through. I got my cough drops here ready to go.
Sounds good to me. And we have NATO here simply because, he's very well known on Legendary Tactics, but also because he's done a lot of videos recently, both on the history of Avalon Hill and of Victory Games. And since we've been kind of focusing a lot on Avalon Hill in the last couple Rat Chats, including our visit to the Gun Road location, the Harper Road location, our interview with Dave Shaw, we thought it'd be good to talk a little bit more with NATO about some of the history of Avalon Hill, but also just to kind of get a feel for some of the things he's been playing, things that he's been doing. So I don't know. Let's start at light. What's a recent game you played that you really liked?
Well, the game I've been playing mostly recently is a Just for Robin Hood.
Okay.
By GMT Games. It's a coin light game. It's part of their regular conflict series, and I've been playing a bunch of that recently, actually, because it's a really neat. I don't know. Have you guys tried that?
Yes.
Yeah, you have. Yeah. It's just a really neat introduction to the coin system, but it stands on its own as a very good game and very challenging, well-balanced game. So that's one I've been playing the most of. I've also been starting to get into Red Dust Rebellion, which is the coin series on Mars. I don't know why I've got a lot of coin stuff on the go at the moment.
That's good.
No, I think you're very popular, and I don't have the Robin Hood, unfortunately, and I haven't had a chance to play it. Wes, do you have it?
No, yes, I do have it. We can play it. Beautiful artwork too.
Yes,
it is. It's a gorgeous game. So you're gonna have to bring it over so we can play it. Does it play two, or do you need more than two?
No, it's only two player.
It's only two player. Okay, yeah. So one person playing Robin Hood and his merry men, and the other playing the sheriff and whatnot. Something to that effect. Okay.
Yeah, because there's bluffing involved. There's no solitaire mode, which is kind of a first for coin games. Most times they come with some sort of solitaire system, but this one it's not possible. So
yeah,
and that's actually part of it. That's actually something that we were talking about last night in another interview with Art Wolf over at his Chit Show as part of the Armchair Dragoons convention, about how every game now seems has to have solitaire. And if you have the game and it doesn't have solitaire, that's publishers don't want it, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think? Is that true, or is it okay to have a two-player game without solitaire?
I think it's okay. It depends on the nature of the game and the mechanisms involved. But I think there's a realization that there's a lot of gamers out there, especially in the wargaming and historical board gaming space, that find it hard to find opponents, especially when you're looking at games that maybe take upwards of 3 or 4 hours to play. it's hard to sell that to your 12-year-old kid, especially if they've got the video games and all sorts of other distractions. So I think it's more just a recognition of the fact that this has always been the case. It's always been the way that even back in the days of Avalon Hill and all those great games that came out in the 70s and 80s, there's a lot of people playing those games solo. They just didn't have a solitaire system. They would either make their own or they would just play both sides to the best of their ability.
Two-handed.
Yeah, we played a lot two-handed solitaire, but we definitely did pick up some of the solitaire-only games. Ambush is what I'm thinking of primarily. And I remember playing that quite frequently because I couldn't get my friends over the house, when I was a teenager, and really enjoying that. And so, I think even back then they recognized that need.
Yes,
which was a big one.
Yeah. The first purely solitaire game, I know B-17 came out, but that was later.
B-17.
I'm just trying to think. Ambush came out in 83. I'm just trying to think of if there's any solitaire games before that. I'm not sure if there really there were that many, but probably the first solitaire war game came out at some point. But by the end, if you look at the games that came out in the 90s, there was a lot of solitaire type games, London's Burning, and a bunch of solitaire games that were coming out more and more. So I think there was a recognition of that.
And maybe that goes along with them having converted somewhat and doing some more of the software development and what they were doing, and then realizing, well, wait a second, we're putting out these software games often for just one player to play. We need to be putting out more games for one player to play. So
we really have to thank John Butterfield, because you can go back 4 decades now, and he was doing it from way back then. He did it before it was mandatory, before it was cool, in so many ways. And so that's we really need to thank him for getting it started.
Yes, yeah, and there's some games like I have Shell Shock, which is the 2-player version of Ambush, and it's one of those games I can't stand. It just lose all the you lose all the mystery and all the sense of exploration, because the German player puts down these question marks, and some of them are decoys and so forth, but positions around the board, but where they are, so you can kind of maneuver to try and take them out one by one or whatever. It just didn't work, and it was
that's interesting to know.
So Ambush for me is solitaire only. They tried with Shell Shock, but I don't think they succeeded.
They did not at all. The expansions were popular, but Shell Shock was definitely not very popular as far as I remember. So let's go back in time. Obviously you're a big Avalon Hill fan. What got you into Avalon Hill in the first place?
Well, it's funny because I've discovered Avalon Hill relatively late in their history. I was born in 76. So by the time I could read a rule book, and so forth, especially the rule books of that era, I got my first Avalon Hill board game in 1987. And I remember it was the summer of 87. The reason why I remember that is because we did our first family trip to Florida, where we drove down. I think it's a 24-hour drive all in. But on the way back, we stopped at Bowling Green, I believe it was, and we went to a mall there, and they had a toy store there. And so I went in there and I saw this game, Bismarck, the 1979 second edition. And I was just so intrigued by it. And I remember I'm pretty sure I spent $12 on it, which, was a fair amount for an 11-year-old or whatever at the time. But I came home, I read the thing through, I set it up, I made my dad play it. And it really just blew me away how you could represent history on a board like that. And so that's what kind of got me started. Now, the challenge was, though, being younger and not having much disposable income. And honestly, I don't remember ever seeing an Avalon Hill game on a shelf in a Canadian store. So it was only really available whenever I went down to the US.
Right.
We'd go to the stores there or whatever, and I'd buy whatever I saw. So that's why I have games like Outdoor Survival, TV Wars, I've got Sleuth. I've got there's a bunch of them that I just picked up just because it said Avalon Hill on it, and so I grabbed it because I knew you couldn't get them where we were. So
Well,
You saying you still have these games from your original collection?
Yep.
No, you're better than I am. I got rid of all mine at one point and then had to rebuild.
I'm terrible that way, but ever since becoming a YouTuber in the space and you get sent games and stuff, I am gonna definitely hit a point pretty soon where I have to actually get rid of games. I have yet to really do it. I still have all these games that I got years ago that are terrible, unplayable things, you know, some of the Milton Bradley stuff or whatever. And I'm just like, I just can't give it up.
No, I understand. Well, you can do what I did and just build a gigantic shed in my backyard.
Yeah,
so
that'll work.
It's literally out there. Right. You can see the city of Baltimore behind me, but that's not because I'm covering up the bomb shelter of my basement right now. But eventually, eventually we'll be getting out to the big shed. And when we get out to the big shed, it'll be a little bit nicer facility. And I'll be actually able to show it on screen. So
yes, yeah. Hopefully it's climate controlled and like a human.
It is. I'm doing the climate control. Somebody's get the humidity going, you know, make sure it's nice and dehumidified and no noise are going. And it'll be, I guess, officially at some point the Wharf Rat headquarters,
nerve center
in Baltimore, the nerve center of it all. We'll see. Definitely.
So I was 11 in 1968.
Yeah.
So considerably older than you, and that's where I saw my first Avalon Hill game is in a department store.
Yes.
Part and the other place that was in Roanoke, Virginia, and it was Midway. It's the first one I got, but just totally fascinated with then the Battle of the Bulge and McAuliffe on the front and all that kind of thing. Really drew me in. But they were also in drugstores back then too.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was. They were really distributed in an interesting.
Now, I was a bit luckier than all of you, and I told some of you this already. But my school, St. Dominic's, Hamilton, Baltimore, Maryland, was a mile at most from the Avalon Hill store on Harford Road. We were both on Harford Road, just drove down right there. And memory serves correctly, somebody at the school's family worked at Avalon Hill, so they actually gave games to the school. And so we could go to the game cubby, pull out a game. Now, mostly they're more the family-oriented games, not a lot of the war games, but we could kind of pick and choose for that. I seem to remember there might have been one war game or whatnot. And then I try to remember what exactly then caused me to buy them. I mean, probably we got into D&D. Someone brought in D&D at some point, probably 80. I'm a couple years older than you, but not by much, but 80, I want to say 4-ish maybe. Anyway, somebody brought in that, and we started looking at that, and what is this? This is fantastic. And then at some point, somebody bought Axis and Allies. I forget the year that came out. And then I remember, though, buying Guns of August, and I don't know if that was my first one or not, but I remember buying Guns of August because I had to do a report on World War I in grade school, 6th grade maybe, I don't remember. And I wanted to show the lines of the war. So I bought Guns of August, and I put out the map, but I didn't want to use the counters from Guns of August. So I grabbed all my men from Axis and Allies.
Oh, nice.
And used them for the men for the line. So we had this strange mixture of World War II men on the World War I.
Yeah.
But, well, I'll tell you, Avalon Hill got me through high school in that I was so into that and making up my own games, modeled after theirs, but on subjects they didn't have. If somebody assigned me like an English project, I remember we had to do our huge junior year English project was on the Elizabethan era. So I went and took, 3 times as much work as a paper would have been, but all fun work, and did the Spanish Armada, a game on that.
Wow.
And there's that, and the rules alone were harder to write than the paper would have been.
Yeah.
But, you did. You just grabbed the SPI game and copied it, right, Wes? That's all you did.
Yeah.
You grabbed the SPI. You grabbed the SPI game and copied.
No. It didn't exist then, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking. That would have been like 1973 or something.
Okay, yeah, that's earlier.
Yeah, SPI was still in its first few years, so at least
Well, so you have. I don't know if we've said this or not. You in your show. You have a 7-part documentary series on the history of Avalon Hill and the way you organize it by years and with logical cutoff points and
Yeah, by era as
continuation.
best I can.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes. And you have, and understand you have the 8th that you're working on, and that will close it out.
That'll close
But
it out.
for
Yeah.
anybody that has not seen that's watching this, you absolutely have to go back and watch this. And Ryan, we'll put the links in underneath here, right? Underneath.
Definitely. Yeah. We'll put the links down below for all of them, and the Victory Games one as well, because I know there's an interview with Mark Herman on that one.
Yes.
What's the plan with all these? Are you going to do something with all 8 of these once you get them done?
Well, yeah. Once I have the 8th done, they just, it's so funny. I enjoy making them, but they take a lot of
They
time.
do.
I'm doing this, YouTube thing part-time. I got a family, I got, work and all this other stuff going on. So I work at the pace that I can sustain. And so sometimes it's long gaps between episodes, but once it's done, I'm going to stitch it all together into one giant, I don't know how watchable it will be, but it will be a giant one-stop shop to get the entire history of Avalon Hill as best as
amazing.
I can research it and so forth.
Wow.
Awesome.
How long will that be then? Probably your guess.
My guess is it's going to be around 5 hours, probably 5 to 6 hours long.
And are you going to approach PBS? And
yeah, I really should. Well,
he's got Ken Burns on speed dial.
Ken Burns of War Games. Okay.
Well, I know it's appreciated within the wargaming community and the historical gaming community, because no one had done anything like this before. And when I started out, our channel was much smaller and everything, and I was just doing it for fun. It was an interesting thing. I found a bit of material online that I could use to write it, and so I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do this and see how it goes. But then, of course, it got more and more involved, and I wanted more and more details. The episodes became longer and everything, but
we might have a couple contacts being local to Baltimore for this last parter of it. So we'll talk later about that. But,
that would be amazing. Yeah, it's one of those things. The funny thing with the Mark Herman Victory Games thing is, I went to Circle DC. That's where I met Wes, actually, and tried both John Wilkes Booth and the Engine
Thieves.
Engine Thieves, yes. And but I met Mark Herman there briefly. He was busy, he had things.
He's always busy.
Yeah, but I said to him, "Hey, do you mind? I'd love to do I'm thinking of doing a documentary on Victory Games. Would you be open to an interview?" And he said, "Sure." And I knew he worked there. I didn't realize he actually ran the company.
No, he ran it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
you had the man.
I didn't even know he ran it.
Yeah.
No, you had the man. I mean, there's a couple other people you could talk to, but he's the one.
Yeah. And so I interviewed him, and then I had this, interesting structure where we went through kind of game by game and year by year, and then I interspersed that with summaries of the games that were released and how they were critically received and so forth. But it made me think back, like, man, I really maybe should have taken this approach with the Avalon Hill series, because it would have been maybe better that way to talk, and to give you guys kind of maybe some exclusive news on our front. I'm working on a very similar documentary for SPI.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And so
so that's going to be the coup. Can you get done again?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were so close.
Okay.
We were so close. He actually, I interviewed Mark Herman, and he happened to be going out for lunch with Jim that day.
Oh, wow.
And he
fly on the wall for that.
He messaged me later, and he said, "Hey, Jim will speak with you." But then I don't know. Then I think Jim changed his mind, and it's fine. Dan Masterson, I don't know if you know him, but he's provided me with some of the interviews that he did with Jim over the years about SPI. So I'm going to be using the voice of Jim Dunnigan, but with permission. But I don't know if I'll actually have a chance to interview him as I'd hoped. But I do have interviews with Mark Herman, Al Nofi, and Frank Davis.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was going to say, you got to get Frank on there. He is.
Yeah.
I know that interview was interesting. I'll just say.
Yes.
He's a fascinating guy.
Yeah, it's actually a 2-hour interview. So now he talked a bit about his years at SPI, a bit about Avalon Hill, and a bit about what he's working on now. So I'm gonna probably chop up that interview and kind of based on the topic, because I need the SPI stuff for the documentary, but the rest of the stuff I can just release, once I've edited it. So,
well, you can always go back and get some additional interviews for additional material for the Avalon Hill. I mean,
yeah,
I could definitely think of a couple that would be great people to talk to, people I know, and then some I don't know, but still probably good to reach out to a couple of these people and try to get some information. What was something that just absolutely surprised you that you didn't know before about Avalon Hill? Was there anything that just you went, whoa, I wasn't aware of that? I mean, in your research.
For me, because I joined I kind of became a fan of Avalon Hill relatively late in their history. Yep. So hearing about their early struggles, where Roberts essentially the company went bankrupt in 63, was it 62, 63, range. And also just I think one of the biggest surprises, honestly, is I always pictured it as this giant megalithic corporation with all these thousands of people all playing games. And really it wasn't like that at all. It was a very small group of people. I think at their peak, they had 2 full-time designers in the building. So it wasn't, but it's funny because my image of the company as something, a gigantic multinational corporation. I don't know why I had that picture, but it just became, it was more of like a small group of people that just loved what they were doing, and they were working not for the money. As we find out in board gaming space, you don't do this for the money. You do it because you love it and because you're passionate. And so that was it changed my perception, I guess, because again, my vision of Avalon Hill when I was a kid was just this amazingly massive company that is just churning out games. And
so I think that image makes sense that you would think that. I mean, we certainly thought that. We would go down, like I said, we would sometimes, because we were so close to the Harper Road, we would drive we had bikes, we didn't have cars back then. Drive our bikes down to the Harper Road building. Hopefully, maybe some game would drop off a box or something. I don't know why we would drive down, but it was a significantly sized building, and that was one of, at that point, a couple of different buildings that they had. I mean, as compared to the companies nowadays and the number of games they're putting out, I mean, they were putting out a tremendous amount of games per year. So I can see why you would think that. I mean, it doesn't compare to, what Milk Bradley and whatnot were doing. No, I was thinking what the big companies were doing. Yeah. But still, I mean, they were putting out a tremendous amount of games. I mean, if any of us in this industry now, in this niche of wargaming, put out what they were putting out, we'd be in seven heaven.
Avalon Hill bought the rights to a bunch of games that were already out to some other companies, and that really exploded their catalog.
They bought the 3M and the Sports Illustrated lines, and and those were great games too. Like I think they bought very intelligently. Like just as a quick example, something that's within reach is Twixt, which is a Avalon Hill title, but it was purchased from 3M. This is a really fun game. I play it. It's a great game to bring to the cottage in the summer, and it's fun. So they were very smart in how they. I think they purchased those properties that way. I think they were very good at that.
And it's interesting. Sorry, Wes, but it's interesting because nowadays, when you look at what is left of Avalon Hill, which isn't really much, and what is put out from the previous catalog, it is all of these purchase games.
Yeah,
it's acquire, diplomacy, et cetera, et cetera. It's nothing, So that's fascinating that it wasn't the homegrown ones.
There are some titles like GMT is kind of,
yes.
And
I was thinking of the official Avalon Hill.
Yeah. Oh yes. Well, no, Avalon Hill is. I don't even know what sort of value that trademark has anymore, because Hasbro is still using it. Yeah, but using it more for fantasy type games, or they'll slap it on Axis and Allies, or that kind of thing.
Now.
Supposedly, and I've heard this, I keep guessing that this is not true, but I've read it several times. I know it's true. Supposedly, the company that they hired to do the Axis and Allies, the one that put out the new versions of
Renegade.
Renegade. supposedly they're doing a squad leader. I can't believe it, but I don't know when it's coming out, and I don't know how they compare to.
It's funny you say that, because I was contacted by Matt Hyra, who gave me, we just connected for a Zoom call, and yes, they are working on a squad leader.
There, okay. So I was right.
It strikes me as being different. It's not. It's inspired by squad leader, but the direction they seem to be going is a bit of a different one. But it looks neat, actually. And actually, Matt messaged me last week and asked me if I wanted to try one of their play testing. There's one of their scenarios. So
okay,
yeah. So yes, it's in the works.
Yeah, very much. People, every time I tell them, they're like, "No, they're not. That's no way. Well, there we go. I guess that was correct. Now, I know how they took G.I. Joe and put it with Action Allies. I always thought G.I. Joe would have gone better with Squad Leader, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
Hey, NATO.
Yeah.
There are lots of companies now. I mean, just so many people doing historical war games and all that, and so many are getting released by, so I mean, it's golden age and all that. But I think still, I mean, from what I see, they're all, the huge majority of those sell about 1,000 to 5,000 units. That's even with reprints and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What was Avalon Hill doing back in the day, and what were some of the biggest sellers?
Well, Squad Leader, actually, there's a breakdown. I was actually reading about this. But the big one is this guy right here.
Outdoor Survival? No? Okay.
Panzer Blitz.
I was gonna guess Outdoor Survival.
Better get this into view. I don't know, my camera's acting weird.
I'm surprised Panzer Blitz. That surprises me.
They sold 300,000 units.
Oh, really?
Of Panzer Blitz.
That's incredible.
Wow.
And it was everywhere. Outdoor Survival did really well also. Squad Leader, I think, was about 80 to 100,000 units, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I had always heard Outdoor Survival because it was recommended to be used for D&D for wilderness campaigns, and so that's why it had done so well. But
that's why it wasn't even the game; it was the D&D people that were buying it. Because if you have one of the original D&D books,
they list it.
It actually lists that in its materials you need to play the game. It says we recommend buying Outdoor Survival by Avalon Hill and using that map as your, campaign map.
And didn't Jim Dunnigan did Outdoor Survival, right? And it was like a challenge or something.
It was a bet,
and they sort of gave it to him thinking it wouldn't do much. And then they came out with Avalon Hill came out with Kriegspiel at the same time with all their hopes. On that one, which, I think now is pretty much looked at as some cool innovations that basically flopped when they were all put together.
Yeah. Kriegspiel was Tom Shaw's attempt to implement his football strategy matrix into a war game. And it did not do well. And I think that may have been the last game he actually designed. It was sometime shortly after that, he took a step back from designing and went more into the executive work at the company. So, but
now Victory Games biggest seller. Can I guess? I'm going to guess.
Yeah,
Dr. Ruth. I'm going with Dr. Ruth.
Actually, you're right. It was Dr. Ruth.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And she sadly just passed away last year. Actually, she was still going. So, but Dr. Ruth was the one that. It just
and that's Dr. Ruth's game guide
of good sex is what it's called.
Okay. Yeah, I can remember exactly.
Yeah, and it sold like hotcakes and outpaced any of the other offerings by Victory Games. So,
was that? I mean, was it the same audience buying it? It couldn't have been. It would have been a crossover thing, and just probably promoted differently, distributed differently, and everything.
Yeah, I think it's very few people pay attention to the board game publisher in general. Like they might recognize a Hasbro or a Parker Brothers or Milton Bradley, but they're not. Most times they buy the game because the theme intrigues them or the title or whatever, and they're not buying it because Victory Games published it. That's more for us. We're the ones that care about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Avalon Hill did something similar, but not as successful. I guess they didn't have Dr. Ruth. They had that witchcraft game, and they had also kind of a sex-related game, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
I don't think either of those did very well at all, did they?
No, they didn't. But Avalon Hill always had the philosophy of Avalon Hill, even though they're famous for their war games, was always about providing a broad spectrum of adult games. Okay. So they let Milton Bradley Parker Brothers have all the kid, Candyland and stuff, but they wanted to do games for adults. So that's why you had outdoor survival or Twixt or various games, the sports game Title Bout or whatever. You had these games that were for adults, but they had a very, very broad menu. They really had between their sports games and their war games and everything else.
That's Monarch when they took over, right? This was all post Monarch. But
because Charles, I'm sorry to interrupt. Charles S. Roberts did create and release a bunch of children's games originally, and they don't think they did very well either. So I guess that would have to have been after that they really focused their attention.
If you look at the very early releases, like the Charles Roberts years of Avalon Hill, so we're looking at 1952 to 62, 63. Yes, there were some war games. There was obviously D-Day, Battle Bulge was after that, but they had D-Day, they had Afrika Korps, Afrika Korps, I guess. I always mispronounce it because that's how I pronounced it growing up, and I find it weird to say it any other way.
I like it. Gettysburg.
Gettysburg and so forth. But they also had games like Verdict. They had games like Dispatcher, which was a train game. So yes, there were some war games like Tactics 2 and so forth. But there was also an attempt to broaden that market out. It wasn't exclusively a wargaming company, even though it's kind of viewed that way today in many circles.
Yeah. And those children's games that he did, I've seen them once. They're really hard to find. Wes and I were both very lucky in that Jillian Roberts had contacted me, Charles's daughter, and she actually came out to the World Board Gaming. I always forget it's a championship or convention, but anyway, WBC I call it. Out in Seven Springs, and she brought all of Charles S. Roberts' games that he had left because he had sold off a bunch of them. At auction. So what he had left, and it was all the children's games. It was all the games that he designed. A lot of the big box games, and then it was a copy of the original Tactics.
Oh wow.
And the prototype for the original Tactics.
Wow.
Including both boards.
Wow.
The original board that was in the original Tactics and that one that appeared in the 25th anniversary. And she brought all that out. She didn't know what she had. She showed pictures of me on Facebook because we had contact and started talking. And I'm looking at this going, I don't recognize the map, because I knew what Tactics map looked. I'm like, And then I realized it was the 25th anniversary map. I'm like, these are prototype maps from the original game. These are prototype counters from the original game. And she brought all that out for us to take a look at.
Wow.
And then I worked with her because she did want to sell the prototype and the original Tactics. And I helped her to move that to a good home.
Okay.
And someone I knew that would take care of it and treasure it. And he has it currently. So, and it was in my house for a while because she brought it over to me to then ship it out. So it was in my house for a while. I did have the original prototype, so I felt like I had one of the first board games ever. Yeah, it was amazing history, and it was like holding treasure, and it was remarkable. So we got to see a lot of those early Charles Roberts games, which was really cool because I've never seen some of them before in my life. I mean, just to see an original Tactics is hard. Let alone the prototype.
And in the middle of all the gamers at WBC, 1 in 10 had any idea how significant this was.
Yeah,
they had them all out on the table.
Hey, I'm like, this is what started all this.
Yeah, I know. Shifting a little bit. What's next for Legendary Tactics and for you?
Yeah, well, we're going to be as of March. I think it's March 3rd. I think we'll be turning 5 as a channel.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of, we started this whole thing as a COVID project,
Okay.
and we just kind of started making videos that we thought, well, we actually started more in the video game space, but it wasn't doing anything. So when we did some board game stuff, one of the first video I did was featuring Labyrinth by GMT,
Oh, yeah.
Runke's design. And that one did better than any of the other stuff, any of the other
Oh,
videos
wow.
we're doing. So we're like, let's go all in on this. And it's been a really, really amazing journey. So, but we're really excited about what we want to do in 2025. As I said, the SPI series is coming out. I'm already working on editing it. The first episode is basically written. I just need to. I've been limited by my voice in the last week or so because I haven't been able to record anything. I'm not going to record a voiceover with this voice, but finishing off the Avalon Hill series, going to SPI, and looking into, it really depends on me being able to get information, because I'd love to do one on GDW as well, Game Designers Workshop, or even Jedco out of Australia.
Oh, wow.
I'm happy to do it, but it all depends on finding the information. Like I did a documentary on Parker Brothers, the history of Parker Brothers, and I wanted to do one on Milton Bradley, but I cannot find any information about Milton Bradley's history other than the games that they published.
Wow.
There's not much recorded.
I have a game also coming out on with Compass about the Confederate raid on St. Albans, Vermont, which was Confederates that are escaped prisoners of war up in Canada coming across the border. It was crazy story. And when I went to the museum in St. Albans, I bought the newspaper from that day, when they started reporting on it. And in one of the back ads, I'm thinking it was Milton Bradley, little classified ad about their games to send to the troops.
Wow.
Huh.
So I'll have to take a picture of that.
Yeah, that'd be really neat. Even Parker Brothers, the only actual source information I could find, there's a book by Philip Orbanes, or I think it's Orbanes, called The Game Makers, which was a pretty comprehensive history of Parker Brothers. And there was another booklet from 1973 that was celebrating the 100th anniversary, or sorry, it was the 90th anniversary. 90th anniversary of Parker Brothers. They put out a little booklet explaining the history of the company, and I was able to find some bit of information there. But other than that, there's really none. It's just one of those things where I just don't think anyone thought to write it down. It just didn't seem like history. So
have you contacted the companies directly to see if they have any historians or people on site, that archivists or anything like that?
I haven't yet, but again, this was part of it's more on me, because I didn't see myself as this big documentarian really because as I said, I was just doing it more out of interest for myself and initially, and then really last year with the Victory Games thing and a few other things, it's like, okay, maybe there's
it is amazing. A lot of these companies do employ people to basically store the history or the archives of the company. My former, I'm a teacher now.
Yeah,
I'm a board game developer, designer, publisher, whatever. But I used to work in museums, and so we had to do some research on some of the first inventions in Baltimore. And one of the big ones, of course, is Black and Decker. And so we went up to Black and Decker, and they had basically archivists that had all their records and every single tool stored from early on to the newest ones. And they kept, like, every time one was created, they kept it and put it into the archive. So that might be a good choice. The Strong Museum. Have you visited the Strong Museum or talked to them? That might be another place.
That's actually another good good potential source. That's great. Yeah, no, as I said, I'm not a trained journalist in any sense of the word. And
I think you're not too far from Rochester, so maybe you can get down there.
I have yet to go to the museum, but one of my colleagues here at Legendary Tactics has been numerous times, and
they have an amazing repository of material in Sid-Saxon online. You can go online and you can look at like all of his documents, prototypes for various games that got published, not published. et cetera, et cetera. It's a fascinating story just in that one person alone.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorites, you know.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
we were actually just at a game store. We noticed some company had just recently grabbed some of those prototypes that had never been published and boxed them together into
Oh.
some games to release. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Oh, that's great.
So,
Yeah, that's another. Yeah, there's lots of neat directions that
yeah, there are.
with this documentary style thing. And I always approach this as I realize I'm probably going to be the only person that will ever do this. So I try and make it a definitive, like that was my view on the Victory Games history, was this is probably going to be the definitive history, because I can't imagine anyone else diving in and doing it. Maybe they will, but I can't count on that. So I'm just going to have to assume that this is it. So I try and make it the best that I possibly can. So that's some great ideas there.
Well, in 30 years, we want to hire you to do Wharf Rat Games.
No, they asked.
There you go.
I was going to say you got some new up and coming companies like Wharf Rat Games, and that's going to be exciting. Yeah.
Am I the archivist for Wharf Rats? I guess I have to start storing all our games and keeping all the records.
Yes,
so that years from now, he can
emails.
write the history. Yes, I'll have to do that.
Well, hey, nobody's, I mean, we haven't officially come out and said this, but thank you very much for what you're doing, because you are really, really providing a wonderful service, a wonderful database for everybody to understand the history and why we're us old guys are passionate about this. It really helps. So thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. I'm happy to do it. It's been fun. It's a lot of research, a lot of reading and stuff, but it's been a really fascinating dive into, certainly part of my personal history, but also I'm so glad that other people are appreciating it and finding it valuable and interesting to watch as well.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking earlier about, not having so many people to play with. And I remember, I grew up in Blacksburg, Virginia, and I'd always have like one friend that would tolerate playing them sometimes,
Yes.
And then we'd do sleepovers, in middle school and stuff, and play all night and feel sick the next day. But one guy in my class, I never had any idea played them. And, we just didn't talk. And now we occasionally play at conventions. He said he used to play the same problem, couldn't find anybody in Little Blacksburg, Virginia. He lives up near Toronto. So, so have to make it up there. But anyway, a question we haven't asked, Ryan, I think we forgot last time, was, this is the Rat Chat, and part of the Rat Pack.
Yes.
Out of the Rat Pack, now, who do you most identify with from the traditional Rat Pack?
From the Rat Pack. Well, I hope I have all the members. I know.
We got that wrong once, but
Sammy
I think
Davis.
we have it right now.
We got Sammy Davis. Jr. Always my
Sammy
favorite.
Davis.
He was a great drummer too.
He was.
Was Shirley MacLaine part of that group?
No, I don't think so. I think it was only the guys.
It was just the guys. So Dean Martin.
Yep, Dean Martin.
Jerry Lewis, was he part of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess maybe unofficially. I don't know if he was or not. Does that mean you want to be Jerry Lewis? Definitely Frank, Dean, Joey Bishop, Sammy Davis, and the one I always forget that we get wrong, and we got wrong last time. I can't remember right now.
Was who? Sorry.
There's always one we always forget.
Yes.
Every time we do this.
Peter Lawford, not Peter Lawrie.
Lawford.
We were saying Peter Lawrie.
No, that's what it was. Peter Lawford, Joey Bishop, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, and Frank Sinatra. That's the Rat Pack.
So which one do I identify with? Geez, that's a good question, because they were like the party guys mostly. I think on there, and they had all the big parties and all the crazy stuff.
Well, you're a younger guy. We could do the Brat Pack if you prefer.
Brat Pack. Yes. Geez, that's a really tough one. I've never been asked that before.
Well, you're going to be officially part of the Rat Pack. You officially go on our website. We put you part of the Rat Pack, and we list the episode that you're on and your links and everything else. So you'll officially be part of it, even if you don't have a person that you want to be. I think actually technically all of them have been claimed, but
Well, no, we're
I
at
know
the point where we have multiples. You know, it's
we
just
have
like,
multiples.
who do
Okay.
you identify with? You know,
Yeah. Jeez.
It's-
That is a tough question. I'm not sure. Who
you have
would
to,
you say that
you have
I
to write us
remind
later.
you of the most?
I'm going with Dean Martin.
Okay.
What do you think, Wes?
Yeah,
What do you
yeah,
think?
I would agree. And you know,
Okay.
that doesn't mean we think you're or everything like him, but you have the coolness and the
Oh, well,
suave.
thank
You
you.
know, you're that. You know, you don't look like an alcoholic. So
No. Dean Martin was just that smoozer. How do you say it? Schmoozer guy.
yeah,
He was just like so smooth, and he was
Yep.
just
Yep. Yep.
yeah. The one thing about the Rat Pack that anytime I've checked them out in old videos, and they did a lot of roasts and so forth, and but they were just guys that just had fun together. You could tell they all really liked each other, and they were just having fun. And that part of it I can absolutely
You can just stay behind that. Well, we want to thank you for being here so much and providing a little bit of the history. We're really looking forward to these upcoming videos, including the one on SPI and the final episode 8 of the Avalon Hill and the final big movie on Avalon Hill.
Yes, absolutely.
All of that, and it was just great having you here.
With all the corrections, like I'm going to say Catonsville.
Yeah.
And consider
when
you put together the full movie, going around to conventions and see if it can be shown.
Yeah,
there you go.
You know,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, why not?
And that kind of thing. You know, so it's some evening or something like that. Because I would definitely do that, to sit with a bunch of gamers and you and your legendary tactics and watch that movie together.
Yeah,
and then have a social hour after and talk about it. You know.
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't been to WBC, that would be the place to go. That has the most logical connection at this point to Old Avalon Hill.
Yeah.
So come on out. I'm sure we can work that out and get you that video shown there somehow.
Oh, that'd be neat. Wow.
Yeah, we can make that work, can't we, Wes? We're big now.
So. You're
big wig.
Good for that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I'll figure it out. I'll talk to somebody I know. Hey, I'm Ryan.
I'm Wes.
And I'm NATO.
Here. Oh, yes, and thank you so much. And we will see you next time. Take care, everybody. Hey, everybody, it's Cool Classics time. What are we giving away this time, Wes?
Well, we're giving away Avalon Hill's 1914 Great World War I game. And I believe this was designed by Jim Dunnigan.
It was. I believe it was his second with Avalon Hill. And this is a classic hex encounter CRT style war game, kind of going over the beginnings of the war. I don't know how far it goes into the war, but I know it goes over the beginnings of the war. And it'll be a nice little pickup for somebody. We have a nice copy to give away. And let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see who the winner is. Congratulations, Daniel, on your win. Now, everyone else, do you want to get on next month's action? Well, we have an exciting game for you for that month. We have a Ziploc copy of Verdun 1916 Steel Inferno. Very well-liked game, one of the top World War I games. And if you want to win this game, just send us an email, info@wharfratgames.com, and you can get a chance to win. Thank you, everyone. Hey, Wharf Rats, welcome back. We have a special person for you today, a triple threat guy who is involved in not only wargaming, board wargaming, but miniature wargaming, has been also a a reenactor, and has done all sorts of cool things in his life as well as in this wonderful field that we're in. And his name is Goober.
No, it's
Right?
not. This is Goober.
Oh, I thought you were Goober.
It's Bill
Oh, it's Bill
Molyneaux. Well, thank
Molyneaux.
you
That's
for.
right.
It's an honor to be on your channel and to be interviewed. Thank
Everybody
you both,
knows you,
Ryan and
Bill.
Wes.
Don't ever worry about that.
And the other cool thing about Bill is that he is a local guy. He is located just a little bit north of Baltimore. So that's why we have one of this special segment today. Bill, tell us what you're up to.
Well, Goober the Traveling Bear and I make YouTube videos, and then we take that monetized money and we donate it to some museum or historic site. So this past month, we raised $336 for Civil War trails. And how
Oh, that's
Civil War
awesome.
trails ties into Wes? Well, all his John Wilkes Booth signs have a Civil War trail sign. So,
Well, that's Ryan and me. We co-designed that game,
So,
Pursuit of John
well,
Wilkes Booth you're talking about.
yeah, Wes, you're the drummer, so I guess Ryan would be the lead guitar player if we go to a band style for your board game company. And I hope the Wharf Rat,
Wharf Rat.
I hope you guys do fantastic with your new company.
Oh, thanks, man.
Oh, thank you so much. So how did
Oh.
you get into this whole concept of making these videos and putting them out and monetizing them and getting them this money donated?
Well, I have been reenacting since the mid 80s. That's where you are basically fighting mock battles at historic sites. Several years ago at Fort Frederick, Robert Ambrose, the park ranger, I would make videos of the fort with him and do little videos. And there was a point where I said, I think I could do more of an impact helping to teach people about history by just doing that. So I gave away all my muskets to historic sites, all my French Indian War kits and uniforms, and yes, it was quite a bit of money, and I donated all. And now I'm exclusively just making board games and YouTube videos. So
Wow.
that how's it. I'm also over 60 and running around on a battlefield with a 20-pound Charleville musket and leather gear and everything else, and setting up your tent. It just started to get a little tiring.
That's really interesting you said that because I'm over 62. And when I think around when I hit 60, I felt this more of an urge not to lay back and do less, but to focus what I was doing more. Because over the years, you start getting involved with so many things, Is that sort of something similar the way you felt it too?
And one of the things, the park ranger, and I ask everyone, if you live in the Maryland area, please visit Fort Frederick out in Big Pool, Maryland. They're fantastic there. It's a huge stone fort, and no one knows it exists. It's incredible.
I think I met you there. Yeah.
And but what I found was, I'm fighting on a battlefield for 20 or 30 minutes, talking to I don't know, maybe 100 tourists throughout the weekend. On YouTube, I'm getting 3,000, 5,000 views, 60,000 views. So I'm making a much bigger impact trying to help teach history.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an
Wonderful.
example. Yesterday, I spent the day at the National United States Army Museum at Fort Belvoir.
Mm-hmm.
I ran a miniature war game. I also talked about my board war games and, my company that's with Blue Panther Printing. I met a Korean War veteran who was just phenomenal, Medal of Honor recipient.
Wow.
And I also made a video of the museum. And this morning, I have so many people, including people from Australia and England, that will never make it to this museum. We're just overwhelmed by, they have a jumbo Sherman in there. Have either of you guys been there?
No.
No, I have not.
We need
Now
to
I'm
do
confused,
that.
Bill. Bill, you still have a full-time job, right?
Yes, I have
And
a
you're
full.
married.
Yes.
How do you have time to do all this other stuff?
Well, to begin with, I have a lot of vacation time. I've been with
Okay.
the big cereal company, the Honey Nut Bee, for a long time. So, I have
Okay.
over 6 weeks vacation. We don't have to take it all per week. So quite often I take Fridays off. And from May through
Mm-hmm.
September, we get half day Fridays. So using a
Okay.
half day vacation, it doubles my time off. So that's a lot of it. And there are times they send me to work, like this whole next couple weeks. I'm working in the Shenandoah Valley, checking on
Cool.
Oh, cool.
Cheerios in Walmart. So if I see a roadside marker, I can pull over for 5 minutes, take a quick video, and continue on my way.
Oh, cool. Very, very cool. Now, of course, the big question that everybody has, the one that's on everyone's mind, we want to know, how did you meet Goober?
My first wife, who has passed away, but she and I bought Goober in Fredericksburg, Virginia, in
Okay.
1986. And what's happened is Goober was passed on from one daughter to the son, and this and that. And a few years
Mm-hmm.
ago, when I was starting my YouTube channels, they weren't getting a lot of views overall. And for
Mm-hmm.
40 years, I have been using cartoon characters to sell products, guys. I've been using a Honey Nut
Mm-hmm.
Bee. I've had to wear the darn Trix Rabbit costume at a Walmart. And I said, I need something to make my video stand out more. So I have Goober the Traveling Bear, the 40-year-old
Mm-hmm.
ratty looking thing. And he pops up at different historic sites all over the country. And I can walk into some national parks even, and they say, hey, you're the guy with the bear. So
Huh.
eh, so that's how
So
Goober
your
and
viewership has gone up because of Goober. That's awesome.
I think what's happened is also a lot of homeschoolers,
Yeah.
people that homeschool, especially in Pennsylvania and parts of Maryland. And I
Mm-hmm.
have had to change one thing. I used to walk into the museum and have Goober sitting somewhere. I would say, oh my God, it's Goober the Traveling Bear. However, I was getting pushback from some Mennonites that watch my
Mm-hmm.
channel for homeschooling. And of course, I had to change that to, oh my gosh, it's Goober the Traveling
Oh,
Bear.
Mm.
So
wow.
I try to be as respectful as possible to my audience and the
Mm-hmm.
people that watch my channel. And you'd
Wow.
be amazed of how many Mennonites do watch my channel. And when they come, both them and the Amish come to French Indian War reenactments, they come in the carloads. They get dropped off by people that can drive, and they check out the
Mm-hmm.
material of the uniforms. They're not there
Hmm.
to see the battle. They're there to see how things are sewn, stitched. And Conrad Weiser's homestead in Reading, when they have their events, they'll get a couple hundred Amish and Mennonites that show up.
That's
Wow.
interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah, I've only been to one. Well, that's not true. I've been to two French and Indian events. One here in Maryland, and then one up in Fort Niagara, and that
Mm.
was just remarkable.
I had my
Amazing to
bachelor
see.
party at Old Fort Niagara.
Did you? It's an
Yeah.
amazing old fort, and then to sit there outside of the fort and watch the troops storming the fort and trying to get into it, it was remarkable. It was really
And
a
I
cool
do have
event.
to do a shameless plug, Ryan. Old Fort
Go,
Niagara
please.
sells my board games.
Oh, good. I have
That
to get back up there. It's funny. My son always wants to go up there because he wants to just go to the parking lot around sunset so we can see hopefully see Toronto in the background and maybe see a sunset. But I said, well, we can come on today and go up to the fort. He's like, nah, I don't have any interest in that. I just want to go see the water and go see Toronto. So we drive up there when we're up in Buffalo all the time. All the time to go through Niagara and all the way up to Old Fort Niagara, which is all the way up at the tip. So right where it goes into the lake. Very cool place. What
You
is
have
one
a
of?
bunch of I
Go
was
ahead.
gonna
What?
yeah, no, I was just gonna say you have several then games in the museums and available to the public,
Yeah.
and they're all historical war games, and I think you take a tack to go with more basic introductory kind of systems in your games so that the more people can play it, and so that places like museums will accept them because they're not going to take some of the
and
monster
I,
war
I
games.
I deal with this all the time. Now, my new game that came out a few months ago, the Weiss Fork game,
Yeah.
the second largest battle in North Carolina. I've done a lot of videos there, and there's the Weiss Fork game there. For every,
It's upside down.
it's upside down. Every
It's
copy,
upside down, Wes.
every copy of that's sold, I give them $5. I donate $5 to them every
Oh
month.
wow.
That's
And
great.
right now, my YouTube channel, all the money from my YouTube monetized money is going to save Weiss Fork Battlefield. They're trying to put a highway and interchange convenience store right dead smack in the center of the battlefield.
Oh, no.
So they're trying to get that moved a few miles down the road. And all my money from January 1st now through April 30th is going to that site.
Wow,
So
that's
just
wonderful.
I don't ask for donations. I just ask people to watch my crazy YouTube channels.
What about
So
this one
what's
too,
the?
which was redone,
Oh, that's
right?
the original.
Yeah,
Blue
that's the
Panther.
original.
Mhm.
And then I have here the
No, now you got it upside down.
and there's the remake. And Ryan, you did a fantastic job on
Oh, thank you.
helping on getting this revamped. Phenomenal work that you did. And
Thank you.
you can do things that I can't do as far as producing board games. But
Yeah, that
I
was the first one we did with Blue Panther, with me developing. So that was really a fun experience. That was really, in many regards, a test bed. Can we do this? Can we get out a cool looking product in a quick period of time and make it look fantastic, which we were able to do.
and
So I'm
Wes,
glad we were able to help.
you guys are popping out in the world with your new game company. Something I'd like to mention to you is I do get hit quite a bit by the war gamers out there that my stuff is too simple. And I mean, Wilderness Empires, I guess, by Worthington, this is 15 years ago. This actually has a lot
Hmm.
more meat to it. But a lot of my games are made for the tourists in the gift shop. And I'm
Yep.
proud of that. And I'm going to tell you, when you go into a gift shop, I'm going to use Brandywine Battlefield. Miss Nancy is wonderful there. She's probably in her
Hmm.
late 60s, early 70s. When I first showed her my Brandywine game, she had no idea.
Hmm.
She thought, does this play like checkers? And the
Mm.
war gamers out there don't realize we need to expand the hobby. So there's got to be introductory level games for mom and dad to buy a game and play it at home with their kid. If you're buying a GMT game of Brandywine and they've never seen a war game before, their heads are going to just spin.
That's true. That's true, and that's something
And
that we've been working on as part of our company. Is that I I don't know that they would be perfect for that market, but we certainly would like to try to get into that area as well because we really want games that are less than 90 minutes. They don't have to be introductory. They could be a little bit more difficult, but I like the idea of some introductory games as well. We really do want to expand the war game. We want to push other companies like yours, and we've had other companies with other individuals on in the past on our video show. So we greatly appreciate what you're doing. When we think you're doing a great job. Wes, what were you going
And,
to say?
oh no, well, I was just going to also mention to that I have been to Ford's Theater in DC,
Mm-hmm.
and they have two gift shops. I'm going to be hitting you up for some hints and tips and stuff, Bill. But they have two gift shops. One's run by the Park Service, and one's run by a separate company. An independent company. And so, because I would love to get our Pursuit of John Wilkes Booth in there, and up in Bel Air, Maryland, and the Booth Home, that they
Mm-hmm.
built. They
yeah,
have a little gift shop, and I've already talked to them about it too. So you're the expert on this, so we're going to be
it
hitting
is
you up.
very interesting. And I get war game companies have asked me, when Richard Berg was alive, I used to do
Mm-hmm.
some play testing for him. And he was interesting to work with, but we can do that in some other interview. But he he had he did a very good interview review on Struggle for New France, and him and Dennis Bishop were both amazed that it was sold at Fort Ticonderoga.
Yeah.
And I would
Hmm.
like to say Beth Hill at Fort Ticonderoga, she runs Fort Ti with Rich Strum and Stuart Lilly. 20 years ago, they were the first place that sold my
Mm-hmm.
games, and back then they were in a Ziploc bag. um,
Hmm.
very low quality components. 20 years ago, it was almost like the Steve Jackson games of Melee Wizard Death Test level. But they took a
Right.
chance on me. When that happened, things expanded for me greatly. And
Mm-hmm.
the Fort McHenry, which is a national
Mm-hmm.
shrine, they carry my War of 1812 game, and they've ordered
Oh, wonderful.
several cases now. Steve at Blue Panther is quite happy.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
cool.
So you have to deal with a gift shop manager. The National Park
Mm-hmm.
Service, believe it or not, could have three different um, people in charge of their gift shop. It could be Eastern National, Liberty, which is out of New York City, the Liberty statue basically office. So then another company, um, Bridgestone. So you don't know which national park has which buying company. Eastern National is the most difficult to get into.
Okay.
Hmm,
Well, I'll
interesting.
say this, I went to the World War II Museum, which is fantastic in New Orleans, and it's been about 5 years now. And, when I was there, the whole tour, I said, "I can't wait to get to the gift shop and see what they have." And sure enough, they had fantastic books, the whole place was filled with great books and things, and then some touristy kinds of things. I said, "Now I gotta find the games." And I'm looking, I said, it might be something all they have is like, Axis and Allies or basic one, like you see in Barnes& and Noble or something. All they had in the games was World War II Monopoly. And I was just blown away. I think it's an untapped market, but it has to be approached by an entity, a company or something that's big enough to get their attention and, to bring the right product, which has to be a very, a basic system. But World War II Monopoly, that was just after seeing this beautiful museum, I was just like
Uh,
really
these
upset.
these gift shops are normally run by a very nice elderly woman, and they have no concept what a war game is. I've
Yeah.
talked to the players'
Gotcha.
aid and grant 10 times
Hmm.
over that, because they'll send me a note like such and such person went to a thing and they said no. You go into Brandywine Battlefield, they carry all my French Indian war games and my Rev War games. But
Yeah.
Miss
That's
Nancy,
great.
who's great to work with, and she gets a goober calendar, she had no idea what war games were a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. So it's education as well.
And I want to
So,
mention,
yeah,
I
go
just
ahead,
would
Bill.
like to say my Gloucester Battle of the Hook, the
Oh,
largest
yeah.
cavalry action during the
That's your
Revolutionary
newest one
War,
coming out, right?
that comes out soon.
Oh, great.
And director Robert Kelly has helped me greatly there in Gloucester, Yorktown. And he got a free copy of the Yorktown game by Stephen Kling, for historical, um, what's his game company, historical wargaming company or whatever.
Mhm.
And I try to help
Circle
him
games.
out.
Mhm.
But Robert Kelly, I think, has a PhD in history, and he's never seen a war game before. He had that out on the
Oh,
table,
wow.
and he's like,
Hmm.
"How complicated is this?" And so he's selling those games at the Gloucester Museum of History.
Oh,
Yep, that's
wonderful.
great.
Wonderful.
And you gotta,
So we're gonna put another title on. I mean, we had reenactor, we had board war gamer, miniature war gamer, designer, publisher, developer. Uh, you do even some artwork, don't you? But let's add another one. Ambassador.
yes.
Ambassador will be the war game ambassador. Wes, did you have something else?
Yeah, but I forgot it already. But
Oh, that's okay. But we
but
have
but I'm just
we
I've been
And
really excited to
and
have,
to make things even more fun, Wes, you're a drummer, and if you ever need someone to sell T-shirts for you, on stage,
that's
I know.
right.
I used
You
to do
hold
that 40
you
years
have
ago.
you have, something about you, yeah, that maybe the audience doesn't know. What did you used to do with a famous band, and
I
who were
used
they?
to write the newsletter for the band A Flock of Seagulls and Mike Score,
That's great.
and I used to roadie for them. Believe it or not, he didn't own the rights to his video of Iran Space Age Love Song. Sony did,
Mhm.
Mm,
Jive Records Zamba. So he bought me like 6 VHS machines, and this is when they were like several $100s a pop. And I bootleg those darn videos like mad. And then we would sell them for $20 a pop at concerts. And I'd have these video machines running 24/7 before we'd go on tour. So he did
oh my
some
goodness.
crazy things. We're talking almost 50 years ago now. It's quite depressing. And I used to be a lot thinner. On the
Didn't we all?
internet, someone has scanned in about 15 years worth of those newsletters. I would write one every
Hmm.
month or two. They were written on a typewriter, most of
Oh,
them,
wow.
and then a word processor. The grammar, the spelling is absolutely horrendous. They're 4 or 5 pages long or more. Flock of Seagull info letters, you can search them on the internet. I swear I don't remember writing half this stuff. And meeting other bands like the Cars. Ben Orr, the bass player of the Cars, was very, very nice. Robert Goulet was very nice. I could actually write a book of being on tour with all these other 80 bands. And the
Hmm.
lead guitar player, believe it or not, lives near me, but I'm not allowed to disclose where he lives or anything else. He's retired, and he does
For
live
a flock
in the
of seagulls.
yes, he does live in the
Oh,
Baltimore
wow.
area,
Well,
and
I
we get
used
Wow, I
together.
didn't know that.
Well, he doesn't want people to know that, but
when
you're
I
not going to be
was
able to find him.
I just want to know I just want to know what haircut you had at the
No,
time. Did
no.
you one of these? No.
So that's my flock of seagull story, and I do have a lot of adventure things. I got to go to the Pulp Fiction opening for that movie because there was some
Mhm.
tie-ins with a flock of seagulls, and the band was invited there. And Mike
Hmm.
Score is still touring on his own without the original band members.
Okay,
Very
I
cool.
used to live in Newport News for about 6 months before we moved here and to the DC area, Maryland. And I used to play some with a bass player that had been with Flock of Seagulls. This was playing with him in the early 90s. So we'll have to talk some more.
Okay.
Same
I
person?
Mike Score of a Flock of Seagulls was very nice to work with at times, and later on it got a little different. I have not done anything with them since 2008,
Okay.
other than going
Mm.
out to lunch with the lead guitar player who lives 15 miles from me.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
the last time I actually did anything with them was 2008.
Hmm. Very cool.
It's
Very
interesting.
cool.
Well, we
Well,
appreciate
Bill,
so much of
yes, we
everything
really
you
much
do
appreciate it.
for
Mhm.
everybody, you know, for this
Yes.
historical research you do and putting it out to the public. And thank you for letting us use your whole wonderful series of John Wilkes Booth pursuit for
Well,
you know, in our game and talking about our game and stuff.
and yeah, I've been
Coming
posting
up
on my
February.
videos, to buy your Ryan and yours game when it comes out, and please use the
Okay.
videos. Some of those
Yes.
sites are off of 301 on country roads with dirt roads. They are
Hmm.
still pristine. The thicket of woods, you have to go out there a bit to
I'll
get to
bet.
that site.
Hmm.
I
Okay,
have a
so
book
Gotcha.
that has that route and that tour for you to do. So Ryan and I will have to get in a car one day and we'll make
Yeah,
yeah,
sure
we
that
will.
cookie from
We can
school.
do that. That's gonna be a little bit of a
so
drive, but we're
I
gonna do that. We're gonna do the Star Spangled Banner one first.
Yeah.
Because I told him, Bill, that I was going to take him down to North Point and then all the way up, you know, North Point and then Hampstead Hill, which is Patterson Park, and then all the way to the fort. So we're going to do that whole tour at some point, and then we'll go do the other tour with the booth tour. But Bill, thank you for being with us. We really do appreciate it. One of our little local legends here in the Baltimore area. Thanks for being on. Keep at what
hey,
you're
and
doing.
and one
Keep
last thing.
you were healthy and
I
safe.
got to show this to you guys. One last thing. That little
Hmm.
pin there, that's
Yeah.
a
Uh-huh.
licensed battlefield guide pin.
Oh,
Uh,
jeez.
the
Wow.
Okay.
licensed battlefield guides in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania receive that pin for their lapel for their suits. The battlefield
Right.
guides receive those medals. I mean, they're like a police badge. So they're
Hmm.
licensed battlefield guides. They do not get to keep them. They have to turn them in. But the lapel pins, they do get to keep. This is the third
Hmm.
one I've received in the last 2 years, where the
Oh,
And
wow.
you
battlefield
have
guides.
Goober calendars too, Bill. You have
Yes.
people should go to the Blue
So,
Panther to
um,
get a Goober calendar because they're hilarious. They're so fun.
well, I guess we're way over time. So thank you
That's fine.
both very
It's
much for
fun.
all you do.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much,
Thank
Bill,
you
for
very
all
much.
you do. It's been great. And stay tuned for more stuff on Rat Chat. Take care, everyone.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Welcome back, everybody. That is the end of the show, unfortunately, but we have some great news and notes to go over with you. One thing we want to let you know is we have some conventions coming up, and we will be there, so come and join us. The first one being the online SD HistCon, February 8th, 2 o'clock. We will be demoing a Forlorn Hope. And
Yep.
then, Wes, what's next?
Well, let's see, February, I'm looking at my calendar, 20 to 23. Either one or both of us will totally be at PresCon in Charlottesville, Virginia. And great convention, and we'll be showing off a physical copy of Forlorn Hope and among other activities there.
I definitely will be there. I'll be there by probably the end of the week. I know you'll be there a little bit earlier, and it will be awesome to see everybody there. And Forlorn Hope has been coming along fantastically. We are in the midst of play testing right now, the solo version and the first scenario, and people seem to like it, getting good feedback, and that's been very successful. Then we're going to do some additional play testing, and I'm getting some more feedback of the multiplayer version, as well as the other scenarios going forward, as well as getting a physical prototype that people can see at these conventions, which I'm very excited about. We were able to demo it on at our first convention, actually, at ACDC just a week or so ago, which was very exciting. And we also just were able to be on the War Room with ID Jester and the gang, Nate and Rough Swordsman, and that was really exciting as well. And finally, Wes, I know you have some great news that you want to push forth, because I know everybody's been waiting for this. Tell them all about Booth.
Well, as some of you may already know, Ryan and I have co-designed The Pursuit of John Wilkes Booth, possibly the last Civil War game, if you're collecting Civil War games. This will be coming out with Blue Panther. Last I heard is pre-orders will happen mid-February, and by PresCon, a week later, we're going to have games in hand for sale, and we will be also demoing that and playing that at the convention.
Great. So it'll be nice to see people in person, and we can't wait to come on out, join us at these various conventions, and we'll keep notifying about what's going on. But take care, have fun, be safe.
Bye-bye.